Why do dry January when you can do sweaty January? This year, jumpstart your fitness goals with $500 off Peloton Bike, Bike Plus, or Tread packages. Choose the package that will take your training to the next level with accessories like our cycling shoes, heart rate band, non-slip grip dumbbells, and more. All access membership separate. Offer ends January 8th, 2023. Excludes Bike, Bike Plus, and Tread Basics. See additional terms at onepeloton.com.
Hey, what's going on, Giants fans? Welcome to the latest episode of our Talk is Cheap Giants podcast from NJ Advanced Media, the Star Ledger, and NJ.com. Daryl Slater here with Bob Brookover. We're talking to you Tuesday night, December the 27th, after a rather interesting weekend for the Giants. They lose in just crazy fashion in Minnesota, but a lot of other things go their way. I mean, they would have obviously clinched because things went their way. But they didn't win the game when they had to. And so Seattle lost, Detroit lost, Washington lost, Green Bay won. So Green Bay is sitting there at 7-8, and they're in the 10 slot right now. But the bottom line here for the Giants right now, because of what happened last weekend, more so, with those other games, with 2 games to play, they are 8-6-1. They have a 92% chance of making the playoffs, according to 538. But really, it's winning in. Win one more game, and they're in. If they win this weekend, they beat the Colts, who are an atrocious team, and they should beat them. Sunday at home, New Year's Day. If the Giants win that game, they will not only be in, they will be locked in at the 6th seed with the second of the 2 wild cards. And that's it. They can't go higher, can't go lower. They'll be the 6th seed. And it'd be interesting to see what Brian Dable does in terms of maybe resting guys in Week 18, but he'll cross that bridge when he gets to it. A lot to discuss here, Bob, as we look ahead to the playoffs. Have you thought out from Minnesota yet?
Have I thought out from Minnesota? Yeah, I have thought out. I didn't really go out much in Minnesota. When I landed, I got into the jetway, and I breathed, and my breath went out like 10 feet wide. And I said, I don't think I'm going to be going out too much here in Minneapolis. And fortunately, the hotel bar food was pretty good, and I ate it a lot. But it was a great game. I think it's the 3rd time I've covered a game in US Bank Stadium. The first one was the Minneapolis Miracle with Stephon Diggs scoring on the last play of the game. The second one was the Eagles-Patriots Super Bowl, which went down to the last play of the game before it was an incompletion in the end zone. And this one, which ended on a 61-yard field goal. So I've seen 3 pretty good games in that stadium.
Wow, that's a nice trio there. And for the record, Bob deserves road trip MVP of the year, because I did not make the trip. I stayed back here with family and was able to have Christmas Eve. And Bob not only went out there and spent Christmas Eve and then flew home at 5 a.m. on Christmas Day, but he also changed his flight to Thursday to fly out earlier than planned because of the weather to get there. So MVP status there. And look, it would have been certainly, if they had won that game and they had clinched, the post-game celebration would have been something to behold, just because of how crazy it was. I mean, they stormed back from down 10, and certainly winning on a road against a team the caliber of the Vikings, and not just the caliber, but you talk about the Giants as a fourth quarter comeback artist. This Vikings team has really mastered the art of that this season, and it was on display.
Between the two teams, 21 games decided by 1 score or less this season.
Crazy.
I guess 22 now. So.
Absolutely crazy.
It really is. And then you add in the fact that the Giants had to deal with a shooting, by their hotel the night before, which made it even more crazy a couple days.
Yeah, obviously a tragic, fatal shooting in the Mall of America attached to where the Giants were staying, and Giants players, along with their play-by-play radio guy, Bob Papa, were in the mall at the time. It's a very large mall, but it went on lockdown, and guys were nervous, understandably so. That's a scary, scary situation.
I think the thing that made them nervous was they didn't, at first was, it ended up being an isolated incident where it was 2 groups of people fighting. But when you first hear lockdown and an active shooter, you don't know whether, it's a guy, it's a mass killer event, that's
exactly.
So until you know the details of it, you're obviously, yes, going to be very nervous and have a lot of anxiety about it. I mean, John Feliciano said he hit the ground, as soon as he saw it, because he didn't, didn't know what it was. So.
Yeah, that was pretty candid stuff from John Feliciano talking about, just his mindset in that moment, and obviously a really scary and nothing that, these guys live on, everything is planned out for them on these trips, right? I mean, they have free time to go do something like go to the mall, but everything is regimented, and it's like, well, all of a sudden, something like that, throwing a loop in it, and obviously it was a tragic situation, separate from all that, but the Giants go there and have an eventful trip to Minnesota in many ways. And I guess before we get into, we don't need to get right now too much into the Colts. We'll get into that later, but they could be going out. The Giants could to Minnesota here in the playoffs. Let's just assume they beat the Colts this weekend. They could lose, and then no matter what else happens, if they beat the Eagles in the finale, they're in. But let's assume they beat the Colts this weekend, then they're the 6th seed. Right now, the Giants, the reason they'd be locked in as the 6 is because they have 8.5 wins. Washington has 7.5, but the Giants have the head-to-head tiebreaker, and Seattle, Detroit, and Green Bay all have 7. So the Giants are up a game and a half on those teams. So that's why a win locks the Giants in at 6. Not just puts them in the playoffs, but locks them in at 6. They're not going to catch Dallas, obviously, who's the 5 seed, and they're 11-4. But right now, in terms of who the Giants will play in the first round of the playoffs, either Minnesota, probably, or San Francisco. Right now, San Francisco is the 3. They're 11-4. Minnesota's the 2, and they're 12-3. So if you're Brian Daboll and you win on Sunday, and you don't know what's been happening in the other games, and you're sitting there coming off the field, what's your preference? Do you prefer Minnesota or San Francisco?
I think if I'm the Giants, I prefer Minnesota for a couple of reasons. One is you just played Minnesota and you saw that you can score on them.
Yep.
I mean, we talk, I think, every week on this podcast about how the Giants have failed, gone 43 games without scoring 30 points in a game. That last week was the week they should have taken down that record. They had a season high in offensive yards. They left so many points on the. Daniel Bellinger got stripped down inside the 20. Richie James had a drop that could have kept the drive going. Daniel Jones threw a pick for the first time in 5 games down in Minnesota territory. There were just so many points left on the board, and then you add on you gave away 7 points by having a punt blocked. But they, all those things happened, and it still took a 61-yard field goal at the buzzer to beat them. So the Giants know they A, can score on the Vikings, and B, they can play with them. That this is a team they can handle. Whereas San Francisco is such a good defense. I'm looking at their games here. They've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games against the Commanders. They allowed 20. They won by 17, but allowed 20 points. That was the first time in 8 games they had allowed 20 points. They have such a good defense. I think the Giants could struggle to score against them. To me, that's a team that they match up better with.
I agree. I mean, you talk about not just scoring on the Vikings. I mean, the Giants were, they were down 8 points with 3 minutes to go. They get the ball back. They proceed to drive 75 yards in a minute, or really 59 seconds. Not only score the touchdown, but get the 2-point conversion to tie the game. Looked like it was going to overtime. And obviously Greg Joseph with the 61-yard field goal. But we were sitting around watching that on Christmas Eve, and and everyone was going nuts because, obviously a dramatic way to finish the game. But, you don't expect that from this Giants offense. It hasn't been something that they've been able to do on a consistent basis. I mean, but you talk about, defensively, the Niners are the number 1 defense in Pro Football Focus right now. I mean, they're the best defense in the league. The Vikings are pretty good too. They're number 4. So, but I think this Niners defense is something special, something separate in terms of, the other really good defenses in the league. And so I agree. I think that going to Minnesota again, they were just there. There's a comfort level, and they have some film on them. They know their tendencies. I think that would play much better for the Giants. And then the other thing too is having to go to the West, all the way to the West Coast, and maybe having to play that Saturday game. We'll see. Play on Saturday. Maybe it'll be Sunday, or there is a Monday option too now. But that's a that's a long trip to make on a short potential turnaround, maybe shortish from Sunday to Saturday. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, I think ultimately, yeah, the Vikings matchup is much better for the Giants, but we'll see. I mean, they have to win. We'll get to the pick, but like, look, I mean, the bottom line here, they got to beat the Colts. My God, the Colts are atrocious, right? I mean, they're awful. They're a laughing stock. They have to
and like I haven't seen any good answer yet as to why Matt Ryan scored. They scored 33 points in a half with Matt Ryan 2 weeks ago in Minnesota, and blew the lead. Yes, they blew a 33-point lead. But I would be willing to say it's not Matt Ryan's fault they blew a 33-point lead. So the only thing, and I tweeted this today because it's just so ludicrous to think about it. I watched Nick Foles win a shootout against Tom Brady and the New England Patriots to win the Super Bowl. But if you ask me right now, the Colts look at Nick Foles as their best chance to lose the game is to play Nick Foles, and they are entirely in tank mode and thinking about getting as high a draft pick as they can to get their next quarterback. I really believe they are in tank mode, and in many ways, I believe they should be. They've tried the let's go get the veteran guy 3 different times now. They did it with it started with Phillip Rivers, then it was Carson Wentz, and then it was Matt Ryan, and none of those have worked. So yes, they should be trying to get the best quarterback they can in this draft, and I don't think they want to win on Sunday.
Yeah, no, look. They've had pretty good luck drafting quarterbacks. Peyton Manning, Andrew Luck, a couple pretty good players, and doing that with the Band-Aid approach with the veterans quarterback signing just not sustainable. I mean, I think one reason why they're not playing Matt Ryan is he has next year is the last year of his contract. They're going to want to cut him after this year. Obviously, he's got a $19 million salary that's not guaranteed, but right now, he's got a $10 million roster bonus that's due in mid-March next year, and it kicks in for a full guarantee in mid-March, and they'll cut him before that. But the caveat here, the big but, is it's an injury guarantee right now for that $10 million. So if he gets hurt and has like a major injury and he can't pass a physical next March, they're on the hook for the $10 million. And so that's one of the big reasons why they're not playing Matt Ryan. Put him in bubble wrap, cut him, and move on. And hey, if you lose in the process and you move up in the draft order, so be it. And who the heck knows who their coach is going to be. But right now they're the 5th pick in the draft. Houston, Chicago, Seattle gets a Denver pick at 3, Arizona, and Indy. So Houston could draft a quarterback at 1, not Chicago. Probably not Seattle, right? Because they'll go with Geno Smith.
They might still draft one.
Maybe.
Arizona, no. So you're talking about one of the top 3 guys.
Yep, exactly. Top 2 or 3 guys, and if you sit there at number 5, and then if they keep losing, they could move. I don't know. Could they
get
move
as high as 2nd? I guess.
Could they move ahead of Denver? We'd have to. Yeah. But I guess they probably.
I mean, if they lost their last 2 and Denver wins once, although you watch Denver right now, you say how could they beat anybody? But
that's a special kind of dumpster fire too. And then, and then not just that. I think the Jeff Saturday thing, and that's sort of hanging over all of this is he won his debut, but they've been a disaster ever since. I didn't watch that game last night, but they embarrassed themselves again. They were not contending. I talked to a couple of guys in the locker room about the Jeff Saturday hire, and that the players it doesn't resonate as much with them because they're not vying for these coaching jobs, but they're saying, what must like a minority coaching candidate think when or not even that, but like a guy on that staff, for instance,
how about like a Brian Dable, had to wait his whole life. He won 5 Super Bowls and a national championship, and he's 47 years old and finally got the head coaching job.
And he grinded his way to the top. And then, like, there's qualified coaches on that staff, and they got Jim Irsay. It does some wacky stuff from time to time, and certainly hiring Jeff Saturday as an interim coach has got to be on near the top of that list. And but it plays well for the Giants. I mean, right now, if you look at just the metrics of where the Colts are at, they are 29th in offense. They're 4-10-1. They're 29th in offense in PFF, and defensively they're not awful. They're 15th, but like this is not. The Giants are not going to have to score 30 to win this game, right? I mean, the streak is going to continue, and they're going to wind up in the playoffs with again not scoring 30. Likely, right? I mean, I have a hard time.
We'll get back to that.
Yeah, I have a hard time seeing the Colts.
I'll let you know how I feel about that with my prediction.
I know I didn't even look at your prediction yet. I got the email earlier, but so yeah, look, I think there's a lot of encouraging signs for this Giants team, even though they did lose in crushing fashion. Things went their way, and so if you look at how this weekend is set to go, I mean, let's just assume the Giants don't win. I mean, we've been going this whole time assuming they'll win. We laid it out here. I had a post today about could they rest some guys in Philly if they win this game, and they certainly could. But within that, here's what has to happen for the Giants to clinch this weekend if they do not win. You know it's winning in, but it's a Washington loss and a Detroit loss and a Green Bay loss. Okay, that's one scenario. Another one is a Seattle loss, a Detroit loss, and a Green Bay loss or tie. And then the easiest one here is the Washington loss and Seattle loss, and that's because Detroit and Green Bay play in the last game of the season. So one of those teams is obviously going to lose. So Washington loss, Seattle loss. The schedules, all of these teams were on the road last weekend, and they're all home this weekend. Washington home against the Browns, and Seattle's home against the Jets. Those are a couple like fairly winnable games, I would think. And then Detroit's home against the Bears, very winnable. And the Packers, who are late charging here, they get a home game against the Vikings, so the most challenging of that. The bottom line is, like, the Giants can't be sitting around waiting for help this weekend, right?
They shouldn't, and I don't. They did go into last week looking at the teams that were, they needed to lose, and they were, as you pointed out, they were playing some tough games. Kansas City, not an easy game for who played Kansas City again. I can't remember. What's that?
Seattle. Yep.
Seattle, and Washington played San Francisco, correct?
Yep. And so the Giants needed three losses. Right? No, or was it just two? They needed two losses.
They needed two, yeah, and they got that in the early window
because Detroit no-showed in Carolina.
Detroit, which was really the biggest surprise of them all was Detroit getting pummeled at Carolina, who I guess still has an outside chance of winning their division, don't they?
And Darnold.
Yeah. They still have an outside chance of winning the awful NFC South because they're 6-9. New Orleans 6-9. Yeah, they're still both alive.
7-8. So
and that's the thing. The Eagles, as it turns out, might end up. They play the Saints this week in Philly, but are obviously very banged up and have a Jalen Hurts decision to make. And the Saints play very good defense and are still alive for the NFC South. It's possible the Saints beat the Eagles and the Giants win this week and clinch, and that the Giants are the team resting their players and the Eagles are playing their players.
Right? It would be wild because the Eagles have yet to
clinch anything except the playoff spot.
Right, brush aside the Cowboys, and so the Eagles clinch the division with a win or a tie or a Dallas loss or a tie. That's pretty easy. And it looks, I'm looking at the scenarios the NFL put out. The Eagles will clinch home field and the 1 seed with a win. So it's win for the Eagles. And there's a couple other scenarios that the Eagles can.
Right, a Cowboys loss a Cowboys loss or a Vikings loss would also.
It's here. The Eagles get the 1 seed in that scenario with a Cowboys loss or tie, Vikings loss, plus San Francisco loss or tie. So the bottom line is the Cowboys, the Vikings, and the Niners would all let's forget tie, would all have to lose. But the bottom line is for the Eagles this weekend, go get the division, go get the 1 seed, Heck, the
Right.
Giants win this weekend and the Eagles win this weekend.
It
You're
could
going to be
both
looking
be.
at a lot of backups on the field in Week 18.
We could be looking at preseason game number 3 or 4.
If you all right, so let's just say the Giants win. If you're Brian Dable, do you play Daniel Jones at all in the finale?
I might not. I don't think I would. I don't think I would. I would let these guys rest up, and get healthy as possible, and try to put your healthiest team out there when you go play either the Vikings or the 49ers or whoever, in 2 weeks. That would be the best scenario, I think, to go. I don't know if we'll do that. We there's no basis for this because he's never been a head coach before, so we'll see.
Yeah, I think it's a smart move to. I mean, plus, like obviously you could say, oh, a guy could get hurt in any situation. Okay, fine, but like the Giants had a Week 9 bye, so they played 8 games, then had a bye. This will be their 8th game since the bye, so it's not like they were one of those teams that had a late bye. They didn't have a crazy early one, but they've played a stretch, a pretty grueling stretch of games here. I mean, they've been in playoff mode. It's not like the Eagles who were clinched and maybe relax a little bit, right? Obviously, they're still trying, but the Giants are still chasing, and so that emotional Sunday night win in Washington. I talked to guys after that game the next couple of days later. What time did you get back? Oh, like 4 a.m, on a train. It's not.
Yeah.
These
I mean, that's the one thing, and I think we both mentioned this in our stories today. They had gone, so they had gone to where a situation where the Commanders were playing them in back-to-back games with a week off in between, while they're playing the Eagles, and getting beat up pretty good, and then have to go on a short week again. Uh, um, to play the Vikings, who had a regular rest. They had a short week. Finally, this works in their favor, where the Colts had to play on a Monday night. The Giants played on a Saturday, so they get the extra rest. They're the home team, so those things are all working in their favor this Sunday.
I mean, the bottom line for the Giants is go seize it here. I mean, they have the rest, like you said, and the rest advantage. They get a chance to take a breather over the weekend after that really emotional, difficult stretch of Sunday night through Saturday afternoon. They kicked off Sunday night in Washington, 8:20, and then local time, Central Time on Christmas Eve, they were kicking off at noon in Minnesota. So I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but every hour, let alone 12-hour, 24-hour period for these guys to rest their bodies is really important at this time of year. And so, yes, I mean, to get back to what we were just mentioning, I think that they should rest guys if they get into that situation where they have the luxury of being able to rest guys. And so, that's something we'll have to see what Brian Dable will do there. In terms of availability for this game, injuries have been such a big story for the year. We're into this now 20 minutes. We haven't really talked about injuries yet.
Yeah.
I
I think we're going to find out a lot tomorrow about Adoree Jackson.
Yep.
Brian Dable didn't really give us any update on Monday about that kind of stuff. He said he'll see with Adoree. It sounded still unlikely for Xavier McKinney.
Yeah.
This week, remains very doubtful for him. And
Azeez
obviously,
Ojulari is the new one.
the big injury on Sunday or Saturday was Azeez Ojulari getting hurt on a sack of all things, and that would be a big guy to miss for them. I figured out on Saturday after the game that they've got 36 sacks this year, and 24 of those have come in the games that Ojulari has played, and he's only played 6. So,
wow, that's a good. His presence alone leading
his
to
presence alone, and I think everybody would agree. Kayvon Thibodeau has been playing some of his best football since Ojulari's come back too. So he would be missed a lot. Now, I saw him in the locker room. I talked to him after the game, and he was the most encouraging thing to me was he had a sprained ankle and he had his sneakers on, because I've had a sprained ankle before, and it always hurt to put anything on my foot, but he had that on. He described it as a basketball type sprain, which I don't know what that means, but it was clear it wasn't a high ankle sprain.
Yeah.
So we'll see. That doesn't mean he's going to be able to play Sunday, but I do think there'll be a chance for him.
Yeah, I guess like a lateral low ankle sprain being much less nagging than a high ankle sprain, which really, I guess, those are more like leg injuries where your bones kind of separate, whereas the traditional low ankle sprain, just your ligaments it hurts the heck. I mean, it does, and
they do hurt. Yeah,
5.5 sacks for Ojulari in his 6 games played this year, and really has come back from his calf issues, and it's obviously an injury-plagued year. And I said introducing that point that they're healthy. I guess not really. I mean, Adoree Jackson has been out for so long. You just kind of forget about him, and that's an interesting one. Okay, so like if Adoree Jackson can come back in Philly, they probably would want to get him some reps in that game before the playoffs if he's healthy enough to play. Sure. And then of course we'll see about Azeez Ojulari. I mean, it's only 2 guys. You can say only, but they're 2 really, really important players for this defense. And so, I mean, you saw it. I mean, Justin Jefferson's an all-world player, so he's gonna tear up a bunch of people. But you saw how badly the Giants could use a more capable number 1 corner in that game, and so there's no Justin Jefferson across the field in Indianapolis, and so where do you see, or how do you see this unfolding on Saturday? I have not looked at your pick yet, but if you need me to call it up in case you forgot your score, let's see. I'll. Wow. Wow. Okay.
I'm going to read it exactly the way I wrote it.
Go ahead.
This is the week. It's going to happen. No, we're not talking about the Giants punching their tickets to the playoffs for the first time since 2016. That's easy to predict. We're talking about the Giants eclipsing 30 points for the first time in 44 games. Giants 37, Colts 13.
Wow. It would have been a better troll job if you picked 31 or something like that.
No, they're not going to just eclipse it. They're going to shatter it.
It. Yeah. Well, hey, that's why I said wow. I saw that. I legitimately had not looked at the email until I just saw it there. And then, I see here you also picked the Eagles to beat the Saints, and you have if anyone Jet fan leaning is listening to this, you got the Jets losing by 10, which I think is a fair pick.
I asked the question that I love this question. Would the Jets be going to the playoffs if Daniel Jones was their quarterback?
Yeah, well,
I think they would be.
They might want someone of Daniel Jones's, well, at least his 2022 caliber next year, because it looks like Zach Wilson is on his way out of town. But in terms of the Giants pick for this game, I will go with Giants 35. Colts, just pull it out of a hat here, 20. Giants.
You got them going over 32.
Yeah, the Colts are so bad, man. I mean, they're just a disaster, and I just look. If the Giants lose this game, I mean, I understand they can go to Philly.
It'll be a historic loss.
I mean, it would be brutal. This is the week where, like, just to remind everyone, last week the Giants needed to win, and they needed two of the 3 teams to lose. They got all 3 losses, and they didn't win. And their playoff odds, I think, went up from like 87% to 91% coming out of that game, even though they lost because of all the other things that happened going in their favor. This time around, they don't need any help. And then, honestly, they're probably not going to get any help, because you look at those other games, Washington and the Browns, Lions, Bears. I mean, these are winnable games. I know the Packers are they're playing the Vikings, but they're winnable games for these other teams. And so you can't count on that. Go.
Certainly the Packers can beat the Vikings. I mean, the rivalries don't get any more fierce than that.
Sure, absolutely they can. And this is not a week where the Giants can count on help. I mean, you just said Seattle Jets being the other game. I just forgot there when I was listening to them again. But no. Go win a winnable home game against a bad team that's on shorter rest than you. It's just so many things, so many reasons why the Giants should not lose this game. And if you are the gambling type, I'll look at the line here. The Giants are. I don't even see it's not up yet on this. I guess I'll have to find it somewhere else. But
apparently they don't know how to make the Giants a favorite.
Yeah, I was looking on the Score app, which is let's see, on Vegas Insider right now, the Giants in this game are 5.5-point favorites. That's what it opened at on FanDuel, at least. So
If I was a gambling man, which I'm not, I would take the Giants in that one.
yeah, it looks like 5.5 in most of those. Yeah, no, I think the Giants will win. I think they will cover. They'll be in the playoffs. They'll be able to rest guys in Week 18 at Philly. And heck, I think the Eagles will be resting guys as well. And this will be, it's certainly been a bit of a bumpy path here to the playoffs, which, look, the bottom line is the team, they're 8-6-1. Nobody expected that. They did start 6-1, and they've gone 2-4-1. Is that math right? No, 2-5-1. 2-5-1 since their 6-1 start. So that, yes, they've leveled off a little bit. And yes, they've lost some games to teams that they probably should beat the Lions at home. And they lost by 13 points. And so, but they're in a position here to close it out. And that's really all that anyone's going to remember about this season. They're not going to remember, and shoot, especially if the Giants happen to win a game or two or maybe more in the playoffs. But even if they don't, even if they lose in the first round of the playoffs, people will remember that this team got across the finish line in a year when everyone expected them to just be a complete disaster. And they won't remember that they went 2-5-1 before the game that they clinched. They won't care that they clinched against the terrible Colts or whatever. This is about a monumental accomplishment for this team and this coaching staff if they are able to beat the Colts this weekend. So we'll see. Anything else you want to add there?
I don't know what the 2007
Giants
were not. Nobody remembered the 2007 Giants were 9-7 for sure. So
100%, they were 9-7. Yeah, that was not a dominant team. They went in, and you know what? That is a perfect example of anything can happen in the playoffs.
It is, for sure. For sure.
It's a total crapshoot. I mean, it's all about matchups, and that's why I do think.
Well, I shouldn't say. Well, the 2007 Giants were actually 10-6. The 2011 Giants were 9-7.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah.
But I got those two mixed up. But so anything can happen in the playoffs, and it's about matchups. And I think like we said, the Vikings matchup is better for the Giants than the Niners matchup. We'll see. If the Giants can get it across the finish line. By the way, you're talking about thawing out from Minnesota. The weather is going to be 55 on Sunday on New Year's Day at MetLife Stadium, but about a 60% chance of rain. So not cold.
We're going to be wearing short sleeves watching practice on Thursday.
Yeah, not cold, but looks like it could be a little rain. So pack your rain gear. Everybody enjoy your week. Happy holidays to everyone. Hope you all had a nice weekend. And be sure to rate, review, like, subscribe on all your favorite podcasting platforms to us here. And we will talk to you guys around this time next week, and we'll see if we'll be talking about a team that has clinched a playoff spot. So stay tuned until then.